So, Fred, what should a person do if they're facing this type of misleading or dishonest or lies in a relationship with someone? Like, what should a person do to look after themselves and to deal with the situation effectively?
Well, I think the first point is to make sure they're not in denial. And that's not easy to not be in denial. Quite often, the reason why the situations go on for so long is we're in denial. We don't want to admit the person whom that we like, that we care about, a friend, a partner, actually is the kind of person who would lie to us. Because then it begs the question, well, who is this person really? The person we'd start the relationship with, or we believe we're starting the relationship with, is not the person who would lie. So if the person did lie, then who is this person? Until we're willing to let go of the fake personas and just accept reality, however brutal, that's really tough. Then I think it's important to consider, to what extent is this something that actually makes a material difference, or is it sort of a minor detail from our point of view, not from their point of view, from our point of view? If something doesn't work for us, they can label it, they can use snarky names and snarky comments. It doesn't matter. It doesn't work for us. And I've seen this with someone who found out that that his partner had been significantly more active with men than she made out. And she said, "Well, it's you're just being judgmental and all of that." And he said, "This is where the conversation was interesting." He said, "I'm just not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with it because I notice she likes attention, she likes to push boundaries, and I realize I don't trust her with being able to not put herself in situations that are going to lead to something and then she can claim it just happened to her. I'm not comfortable with it." So I'd suggest, if you're not comfortable with something, talk about it with a therapist, absolutely, and don't assume that you have a problem and you need to change. If you're not comfortable, you're not comfortable. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah,
Um, and then
that's
I
an
think,
important one.
yeah, and I think it's really important to think, what is my line in the sand? To slightly minimize or maximize things, to embellish a little bit, is understandable. And it could be a rule of, like, would it be 10, 20%? It's something else if it's 50 or 100%. It's something else if it's completely made up. I know of a situation where someone was misled about the other person's age and said, it shouldn't really be important. And the other person was saying, well, it is important because if there's a future involving children, we have a specific time frame. And I don't want to be stressed when it comes to that time frame. I want to be able to have a few years to be able to get to know the person and build something. By being misleading with the time frame, it's, instead of having a few years, it's a matter of a few months. And that's too much. I feel rushed. So I wouldn't have started specifically for this reason. So that was, in that situation, that was a line in the sand. Is, I explained why this was important. You didn't correct this, and it only came out after a lot of digging. But when would it have come out? Like, you were okay misleading me, knowing full well this was incredibly important for me. And the person said, well, I don't agree that it's important. Fine. That's a good reason to split up. If for you it's not important, and for me it's very important, we have a basic disagreement on something fundamental. So we shouldn't be together if we can't even agree on this. And if you
Exactly.
and if you believe that I don't have the right to have my preferences, that's an issue. You have the right to have yours, and I have the right to have mine. We have the right to have different points of view when it comes to past history, to past behaviors. And everyone's got every right to be completely unfair. If we don't see eye to eye, that's okay. We don't have to, but then we shouldn't be together.
Exactly. Especially if, person A doesn't care about person what's important to person B. Like that's not going to work. Because obviously, if a relationship to be successful, each person can have different values and different beliefs, different ideas. I mean, you're not meant to be exactly the same person. Otherwise, the relationship doesn't have any, doesn't have any dynamic or intensity. But if a person doesn't care that about the important thing of someone else, then that's already a that's disqualification. Like they don't care about what's important to you. Like that's not going to be a relationship.
Yeah.
And I would say, two very important things in regards to this topic, like dealing with someone that is hiding things, deceiving, lying about things, is first of all to just accept that, you know, I am being deceived and lied to, and it's not a reflection of me as a person. It's the other person's issue. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm accepting that I'm being lied to, because like you said, denial is a very, very common strategy to deal with it. And it's better to just say, I'm accepting, I'm being swindled, I'm being scammed, and it's not a reflection of me. I'm still the same, you know, viable, good person. And the other person is the one that's really got the issues here, because they're lying. That's the
Yeah.
key number one. And the second key point I would say is to really ask yourself, like, is this other person, you know, are they taking accountability and responsibility for, you know, for their side of the story here, like for their things? And, you know, if the answer is no, then, you know, you can't be in a relationship with this person, because, you know, for a relationship to be functional, each person has to at least take accountability and responsibility for things that they have done or things that they have said.
Yes, that's very important. It's
And
about,
this is good
yeah,
self-care.
yeah, absolutely. It's about the communication coming clean.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, taking stock of the situation as it is now, just asking, removing all of the history in the past, would I sign up for this today? And is it what I signed up for? If it's not what I signed up for and I wouldn't sign up for it today, well, then consider that getting out possibly is the right thing to do. And if we're reluctant to get out, try to understand, why is it? Is it because we believe the future can work out for some reason? In that case, what is it? And do we believe that there will be more lying and deceiving going on? It's one thing for the person to try to lie their way into creating stability. It's something else for the person to say, you know what, this whole lying thing doesn't work for me, or deceiving thing doesn't work for me. I'm relieved when I can come clean. I'm relieved when we can just have a healthy relationship. It depends what kind of relationship we want and what we tolerate. Again, some minor embellishments, you know, might work for us or not. If we're too strict, then we end up being very lonely. And if we're not strict enough, then we end up being completely deceived. And probably we have to balance the two a little bit. But I think one of the big points is, you know, I think in law they talk about some kind of material thing being, you know, misleading. If there's something fundamentally flawed from the get-go, it's a scam. And I think using the word scam is helpful.
Hmm. Yeah, in Jewish law, if two people get married and there's something like this that is like has a significant impact on the other person that's not disclosed before the marriage is actually given the term a mekach ta'ut. So a ta'ut
Mm-hmm.
is a mistake, and a mekach is a sale. So it's actually like you bought a faulty product, like meaning
Absolutely.
it was misrepresented, and yeah, the foundations are flawed. So what are you expecting to build on top of that if the foundations itself are not even standing?
That's very true. I
Yeah.
think, you know, it's the good. Yeah, well, you were misled. You signed up for something expecting to build something. You know, you buy land expecting to be able to build a house, and then you find out that it's a swamp, and you can't build anything. Is going to be a bit of a problem. You know, swamps are fine, but you don't sign up. You don't buy a swamp in order to build a house. It doesn't work.
You bought a
And
piece of Mordor.
exactly. And you know, I think it's really about just the clarity. If you know it's a swamp, you're going to stop. You're going to give up building a house there. If you want to build a house, you can't do it on a swamp. And then, you know, if people have, using the swamp metaphor, if we're a bit of a swamp ourselves, maybe we need to drain it out to start with, to be in a place where we can afford to be a little bit more picky. And if the other person continually lies, you know, if they lie about being a swamp, they're probably going to lie about it being drained. They're probably going to lie about the foundations not being very solid. And at one point, the house will collapse and they'll just go, well, you know, it's not my fault.
Yeah, it's your house.
Exactly. You put in the effort and the money and the time. I'm okay with it because I see you putting in the effort, which makes me feel good. Uh, you know, I think it's really, do they have the behavior of someone who wants to make things work out in the long term or not? If they don't, if they're being deceitful about past relationships, timelines, and they don't, and also especially if they don't have a problem about being deceitful, well, that tells us who they are. You know,
100%.
probably
And I,
not a long-term partner.
yeah, definitely. And I want to finish off by just reiterating the good point that you made before, that speaking to a counselor, speaking to a therapist is so important when you're dealing with a partner that is deceiving and misleading and covering things up, because, you know, by yourself, being stuck in your own mind and being in that state of confusion, what's real, what's not, talking to someone on the outside of the relationship can really help the person to reset their compass, find out what's real, what's not, how to look after myself, make some good decisions that are good self-care, and how to manage a situation or even how to get out of it is, talking to someone on the outside is super important.
That's very true. Just being able to verbalize, first of all, verbalize things, put words to it is important.
Mm,
I think there's something very powerful about being able to talk through it with someone, especially someone who is neutral, who's a professional, so not a friend, because that's a lot of burden to put onto friends. That's important. I think if we struggle to write things down because we don't like what we're seeing, that's a pretty big sign that something's amiss. Talking is powerful. Having someone listen is powerful. Also remember that counselors don't always understand what happens with toxicity. So it's important to also just, if you have some awareness to say, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't know if I can trust the person. There's a big difference between the person tells me accurate things and I know the person can be misleading. That's a big change. The person can be misleading, so I don't know what else they're misleading about, versus I know roughly the person is, give or take 10%. What they tell me is roughly accurate. Sometimes it can be massively, massively inaccurate and a lot of rewriting, and have situations that don't add up at all. And that's a big red flag. If there's proof that something they said is absolutely not accurate or is even the opposite of what they said, then we don't know what else they're being misleading about. It's really important to remember that.
yeah, and reach out and speak to someone on the outside of the situation to get some clarity and support.